So today we want to talk beyond politics and all of those social media noise we've been hearing. We want to ask the more bigger question: what do these new tax really mean for everyday Nigerians? That is what we want to ask. What does it mean for traders? What does it mean for workers? What does it mean for professionals? What does it mean for businesses? Who pays what? Who is exempt? What has changed and what has not? And today we step away from, all of those speculations and fear mongering to focus on facts, to focus on the law and citizen responsibility. So joining us for this crucial conversation is Ate Solomon Vendaga, a lawyer, tax policy researcher, and former analyst with the Presidential Fiscal and Tax Reforms Committee. Ate Solomon Vendaga is a legal researcher with strong expertise in taxation law, technology law, and public policy. He has contributed to national and international legal scholarship, worked with Presidential Fiscal and Tax Reforms Committee, and is actively involved in public legal education through media and civil society. Good morning, Solomon, if you can hear us.
Yeah.
Good
Good
morning.
morning, Cynthia.
Good
I can hear
morning.
you.
Yes, it's good to have you join us today. Can you
Yeah,
hear me
Sam.
clearly?
Happy New
Okay, okay.
Year.
So let's start from the basics of the whole tax reforms. So I want you from your legal perspective and as a policy expert, what fundamental problems are these, new tax laws trying to fix in Nigeria's economy? Are we talking about revenue shortfalls? Are we talking about fairness, accountability, or all of the above?
All right. So thank you so much, Cynthia, for that question. So over the years, the Nigerian tax system have faced several problems, and one of it is the multiplicity of tax laws. So you find out that there are so many tax laws in different places scattered all about. So it becomes very difficult for a taxpayer, for instance, to know what is his tax obligation. So for a taxpayer, for instance, to know what is his obligation under the capital gains tax, he has to go and look for capital gains tax act. For personal income, he has to go and look for personal income tax act. And so one of the challenges which the tax reform seeks to address is the multiplicity of tax laws. So currently, the tax reforms has consolidated and harmonized the major tax laws in Nigeria into a single, into just 4 pieces of legislations. So if you want to know your tax obligation, you just pick the Nigerian Tax Act and you are able to know what your tax obligations as it has to do with the federal taxes in Nigeria. And then another problem is the problem of revenue collection. The tax to GDP ratio, which measures the ability of the country to assess and collect taxes, has been very low at just about 11% or so, which is below even the 18% or so that is at the African level and the 34% that the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development benchmark provided. So another challenge also has been the challenge of multiplicity of taxes. A Nigerian company, for instance, after paying the company's income tax of 30%, would have to also first levies like the Nathani levy. We also have to first the NITDA levy. Has to also pay different fees like the tertiary education funds. But under the reforms, all of these fees has been consolidated into a single 4% development levy. And then there is also the challenge of complexity as to the processes of taxation. So remember I mentioned the tax laws has been existing for a very long time. They're not in touch with the current realities. For example, the if not for the Finance Acts of 2019 coming forward that have made provisions around um, um, digital economic presence, what we call significant economic presence, the tax law never envisioned and digitalization. So all of these things compounded together. And then lastly, which is very important, is that the the tax regime before now was not encouraging, was not favorable rather to businesses. For low income earners, they were taxed. But under the current regime, there is now a graduated and progressive tax regime, so much so that those who earn higher are going to pay higher taxes, and then those who earn lower income, we actually notice some,
Listen to you. It is you we want to listen to today.
Exactly.
All right, so just like I was saying before, the network, though the Nigerian laws as to taxation have changed to cater for the current realities, the principles of taxation have remained unchanged. Taxes. Let me even start with the words of Mr. President when he was charging the committee he appointed for the tax reform. Say tax the fruits and not the seed. So what this means is that taxes are applied on income. So the income, and if you look at the tax law, Nigerian Tax Act Section 3 and 4 provided for those income that are liable for taxes. So if you engage in business, trade, or profession, you earn income, and the income is within the taxable threshold, you are within you will be taxed on those. If we deal with assets, and those assets are taxable assets, for example, properties like shares, land, the gains you make from those investing in those assets after your deductions will be also subjected to taxes. So taxes are not applied, or tax will not be applied on gifts. Tax will not be applied on just because you move money from your, let's say, from your GT bank to your OP to spend, and you say the tax man will not deduct. No, that is not an income, and it will not be subjected to tax. It has not been the situation, and it will not be the situation also under the current regime. So, what is taxable is income. You make income, for example, you're a freelancer, you make your income. At the end of the day, maybe you're a digital content creator. From your Facebook, you have earned a good amount of dollar. Such monies are subject to taxes. So it has to be where you have given up value, and then money is exchanged for that value. Then it becomes taxable.
Quite interesting. I'll
So
leave
it is
Mary
not.
to ask the
Uh,
next question, but I have a follow-up question with that.
All right.
all right.
Good morning again, Mr. Solomon. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah. Good morning. Yeah,
All
I
right.
can hear you.
All right. I appreciate the fact that you're breaking the tax reform law to a simpler way everybody would understand. But my question now here is the new law introduces a progressive personal income tax. Now, who exactly benefits the most from this structure, and who bears the heavier responsibility? Nigerians would love to know.
All right. So just like I've explained earlier, the reforms have also affected the rate of personal income tax, or the rate of taxes. So there's now going to be a progressive tax regime, such that those who earn lower will notice a drop in their personal income tax. So basically, those who earn higher from 20 million and above are going to see an increment in their personal income tax. But if you earn below 20 million naira, if you have been paying your taxes, you see that at the end of the day, you are going to see a reduction from your pay, that is pay as you earn, that is being deducted from you.
Okay.
So basically, there's a progressive tax. Low income earners, that is those who earn above the threshold, because the law exempts, for instance, the income of those who earn a minimum wage. So if you earn minimum wage, and you earn below the threshold of 800,000 naira, which is under the tax needs, you are not going to be taxed. And then if you earn above that, up to below 20 million, you are going to also see a deduction from your payee. You are going to see a reduction rather from your payee, which shows that there is now a progressive tax regime.
Okay.
Okay, okay. So my follow-up question
Okay.
with you mentioned that people will not be taxed for um, should I use? Let me use the word loosely, for unnecessary things.
Okay.
So I want us to go back to this tax harmonization that all states are trying to, all states are trying to align with the tax reforms and they are harmonizing the tax, which I really like because it's going to save people from all of those multi-taxing, unnecessary multi-taxing and whatnot. But then what's this talk with Lagos State trying to tax properties? So I want to understand from a legal standpoint, is taxing properties too, part of, because I don't know. Let me hear from you. What do you make of taxing
All right. So,
properties to fund development
all
in a
right. So,
state?
I think there's. Let me start from this. That just like we have three levels of government, the federal, state, and local government, the taxing authority in Nigeria have also been shared among these three levels of government.
Okay.
So, for example, companies' income tax is an exclusive tax for the federal government. Then personal income tax is a tax for the state government, and then we have other taxes that have been shared within these various levels of government. And then for your question on property tax, yes, properties are also taxed. There's property taxation, and that's why you have, for example, capital gains tax. So if you have purchased a property and over time the property um, have the price have increased, and you are disposing of that property, the gains you've made on that property will be subject to capital gains tax.
Interesting.
Again, if you also own property, there are other levies or fees that comes at the state level. There is a land use charge. For example, Lagos State, have laws on land use charge. There are also you also have to pay stamp duty on such transactions. So it depends on what transaction you are making with the property. If it is lease, for example, you own a property and you have leased it out, and the lease term in terms of the consideration, the money you receive is above the threshold, you are going to pay stamp duty on that. So I think this should answer the question on property taxation.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk about businesses now. I think Mary wants to ask something about that.
Oh, okay, okay. On businesses now, small companies are exempt from the company income tax, while large firms pay more. So, how does this structure affect entrepreneur and job creation?
All right. So thank you very much, Mary, for that beautiful question. Um, part of the objective for the reforms is to provide an enabling environment for business to strive. And I think the Medium and Small Scale Enterprises Africa and NGO did a survey, I think in 2025, and it revealed that the informal sector where these small businesses exist contributes almost half of the GDP in Nigeria. And there also, it is the informal sector where the SMEs exist that um, is offering employment to about 80% of the Nigerian population. So this makes this sector a very viable sector. So taxation beyond raising revenue for the government also provides, and it is a tool to ensure that the economy grows. So through these tax reforms, the SMEs are being given free aid. Let me use that word, free aid to breathe. So if you have a small company, for instance, and I think I also let me make this distinction. There's a difference between a small company and a business name. A
Okay.
company is registered. When it is registered, it is a legal entity. It is a person in the face of law. It is different from the person who registered it, and it has just like I say, it is a person. It's recognized as a person in the face of the law. But a business name is not different from the person who registers it. It is the same thing with the person, and the liabilities of the business name will also be the liabilities of that business. So if you have a company, the law defines a company, I think under section 202 of the Nigerian Tax Act, a small company is the company that the annual turnover is 100 million naira and below, and the net asset does not exceed 250 million. So if you fall within this threshold, you will enjoy zero corporate tax. That is, instead of paying 30% company's income tax, you're going to pay 0%. You're also going to be exempted from the 4% development levy. You are also exempted from the value added tax obligations, where you have to deduct, sometimes you have to report. Even the withholding tax obligations, you're also going to be exempted from it. The bottom line is to allow these businesses to thrive, to plow in the profit into the businesses, and with this there will be more innovations. It will encourage people to engage in economic activities, knowing that if you within this threshold, you are not going to be taxed. There is free air for you to breathe and to also grow your businesses. So I think this is the dividend, so to say, we expect from these tax reforms for small companies.
Okay, I
But then
think
let me add,
okay.
that
You want to okay, okay.
you are exempted from paying taxes does not exempt you from obligations under the tax law. For
Okay.
example, you still have obligations to file your returns. Because, in fact, it is in the filing of these returns that you tell the tax authorities, you make the tax authorities to know that you are a small business. So the
Okay.
return simply is to show some level of transparency, to show them that, look, oh, this is how much I've made in the year. But because you said if I made below 100 million, will not pay companies income tax. So this is my situation. That is why I did not pay tax.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it does not exempt you from the obligations that you have to do.
Okay, I think that's clear. We are trying to segregate obligations,
Yeah.
from, I mean, what needs to be done, what we don't need to do. I mean, the do's, to
And
put
the
it in a
don'ts.
simpler term, the do's and the don'ts. I
Yeah.
think that's quite clear for
Yeah.
everybody out there. But now let's move to, because we are in a digital landscape now, and Nigerians are becoming more digitally inclined. So let's talk about the laws also. When we look at this law, it also brings digital assets and cryptocurrency gains into the net. So, given the volatility of the crypto markets and the anonymity often associated with digital transactions, how prepared is Nigeria's legal? Throwing this question straight to the legal bodies. How prepared is Nigeria's legal and the regulatory framework to assess, monitor, and enforce this fairly?
All right. So part of the reform is to include, just like you said, Cynthia, to include digitalization, and then it also captured virtual assets. And if you look at that, categories of income, virtual assets have been included into the income stream. But then there is now a formal recognition of virtual assets. Even this, the investment and securities um, Act, that is of 2025, have formally defined virtual assets. The law have also defined what virtual asset is. So it means that the idea of virtual assets and digital assets have been recognized. Like, there is a legal recognition of this in Nigeria. And then on the other side of the question around volatility, yes, the laws also recognize the volatility of this. And so for assessment in terms of taxation, the law provides such that this volatility will also be will be put into consideration in assessing it. Now, beyond that, in terms of regulating it, like you asked, there is now a formal framework for regulating that. Virtual asset providers are service providers are going to register with recognized authority like the Securities and Exchange Commission. They're also going to, under the Nigerian Tax Act, they have the responsibility to report. So, over the years, the virtual assets providing that this sector has been used even for money laundering and other activities around terrorism financing. So the government is very careful and has taken all of this into consideration.
I think that's the much we can take,
Yes.
but we've heard a whole lot. Even before I asked some of the questions I wanted to ask, the barrister, they have already, answered
Explained.
some
Yeah.
of the questions, broken it down like bits and pieces or bits in pieces. How did they say it? No, he has done justice to this topic. And I hope you out there watching have gotten good clarification about what this new tax laws
Details.
entails, what it means for every Nigerian out there. So as Nigeria transitions into this new tax regime, one thing is very clear, that confusion is very costly. And that's why we are here, and we have brought an expert to break it down for us. But we must also understand that ignorance is even more dangerous. So it's a good thing that you have better understanding of what these tax laws mean before you start worrying and complaining. So understanding the new laws will empower citizens not just to comply, but to demand transparency, to demand accountability and value for money for those in power. We will continue to track how these reforms unfold, Mary, and what they mean for you out there. So do not forget that you can join the conversations. Share your thoughts on our social media platforms. Watch this episode again so that you can go back to what's okay. If you have a confusion or some conflictions about the new tax law, you can revisit this video on all our digital channels on YouTube, even on our social media platforms, and follow us for more fact-based discussions that cut through the noise. I'm Cynthia Bassi, and of course I have been with
Mary Ochimajo.
okay, and that's how we say thank you
Thank
for
you
your
for
time.
watching.